we are inching closer and closer to disclosure. On March 15th, 2019, the former head of the UFO program in the Pentagon, Luis Elizondo, gave a 2.5-hour bombshell speech held by the Scientific Conference on Anomalous Aerospace Phenomena. In this video, I'm going to cover some of those bombshells and give you some of my own commentary. If knowing where we are on this pathway to disclosure is important to you, I can't recommend enough that you watch this entire video. Elizondo conveys, I would like to share with you some personal insight. I received a call from a very dear colleague of mine who's still at the Pentagon, who works this effort very, very closely. And so yes, read between the lines. When I say he's working this, I don't mean in the past. Actively working this. So that means he said it continues. So congratulations. It's still going, and that too will come out hopefully in a very official way sometime soon. But I received a call from him very, very recently. Actually, it was this week. And he said, you know, Lou, it's funny. The conversation I had to have with you just 1.5 years ago in a vault within a skiff in a TSS CI facility that sat clear, and we had to whisper to have this conversation. I can now have this conversation in the open halls of the Pentagon. Imagine that, how far we've come. Elizondo stated that he's hopeful that the ongoing continuation of the ATIP program will be verified very soon in a very official way. And that's beautiful on 2 counts. For one, all the skeptics that said ATIP closed down in 2012 because they didn't find anything significant are going to look really stupid. And for 2, the fact that it may come out in a very official way via the government that ATIP is still ongoing foreshadows the trend we're currently on, which is that the government is becoming more transparent about their knowledge of UAP. It looks like the Condon report wasn't so accurate after all. I like to call it the Con report. Elizondo explains that he didn't leave the Pentagon because of bad blood. He left because he had no other choice. He left for a purpose. The problem was that his boss, at the time, Secretary of Defense James Mattis, was not getting the necessary information that he needed for James Mattis to make a decision on how to deal with this presence, with this UAP phenomena. In fact, George Knapp has conveyed on the radio, Phenomenon Radio interview, that in his discussion with Elizondo, he got the impression that Secretary of Defense James Mattis was being insulated from the ATIP program. Now imagine how awful and how over the top and how bizarre and how nonsensical that is. The Secretary of Defense is not being briefed on UAP that do circles around F-18s, that turn off nukes, do all kinds of things that threaten the national security of the United States, and the Secretary of Defense Mattis is not being told about? That's nonsense. Anyways, here is Elizondo responding to all the conspiracy theories as to why he left the Pentagon. Of course, a lot of speculation came out as a result of that. For example, I spied for the CIA trying to fool people and do soft disclosure. As I've said before, at the end of the day, I'll tell you no, but it really doesn't matter because people are going to believe what they are going to believe. At the end of the day, who cares? Because we're getting what we wanted. You're getting the information that was so squirreled away in these little secret hidden compartments. It's now coming to light. I happen to agree with Elizondo here. Whether Elizondo really did leave the Pentagon in protest that a sufficient discussion is not being held within the Pentagon and within the American public regarding this phenomena, or him leaving the Pentagon to remedy that problem was only a cover story so that the government could slowly transition into greater transparency on the UAP phenomena is, to me, pretty much irrelevant. And I'll tell you why, because it doesn't change the calculus whatsoever. At the end of the day, there's one solution. There's one solution, and that is the government becomes more transparent about what they know regarding the UAP phenomena so that people like me, people like you can actually have a discussion on it. That is the solution. That's all I care about. The calculus doesn't change whatsoever in my mind. Elizondo conveyed. Keep in mind, just 10 years ago, scientists still couldn't agree whether or not the giant squid in the Pacific really even existed, because no one saw one on camera until finally enough washed up on the beach and enough showed up on deep sea cameras where now we realize, oh, you know what? There really are sea monsters in the ocean, but they are actually a species. It's actually a part of nature. It's not pseudoscience. It's just science. While I think there's long been sufficient data justifying, at the very minimum, the hypothesis that some UAP are technological and not of human origin, I do believe that what Elizondo speaks of regarding the giant squid is precisely what's going to manifest very, very soon in regards to UAP. I anticipate the scientific community is finally going to see the light, and the data coming out in the near future is going to help that process immensely. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Just because you don't see what's on top of the water, there's a whole lot going on underneath. So I ask for a little bit of patience and understanding, which you've all been very patient in understanding. I think good things are coming. I think good things are coming this way. Yeah, they're going to be a little scary for some people, and maybe this is a conversation that is not only involving scientists like you and the curious, but also maybe religious scholars and philosophers and government people and academics, right? Why not bring them into the mix? Because at the end of the day, I don't care if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a cop, you're a fireman, you're a school teacher, you're a student. This phenomena affects every single one of us equally. And how we interpret this information may differ depending on where you come from and what your view on is in life. But at the end of the day, we're all affected equally, so we should probably all have a conversation together, in my opinion, anyways. I absolutely love what Elizondo stated, because he's absolutely right. This phenomena impacts everyone. Everyone on the planet, everyone within the United States. And there is nobody who knows for certainty whether this phenomena is a threat or not. If something were to happen in another land, if something were to happen in another state, if something were to happen in my city, it could affect a loved one. It could affect me. And therefore, I should know about this phenomena. There should be a discussion about this phenomena. Maybe a discussion amongst scholars and academics and scientists and philosophers could actually lead us in a direction that could preclude something going wrong with our interaction with this phenomena. Because what you have to understand is that this phenomena may not be a threat in terms of it doing something on purpose to our world or to humanity. But the phenomena, with all its technological capabilities, could easily do something unintentionally. But let me tell you something about unintentional problems. They're still problems. If the phenomena does something unintentionally, it can still have a negative impact upon this planet. You look at the literature. There have been crashed vehicles. Now, whether those crashes were done purposely or not, who knows? Nukes have been turned off. We don't know why they've been turned off. We can have a debate about that, but we don't know. Nukes have been turned off by UAP. Look at Travis Walton. Travis Walton, guess what? He was almost killed by a UAP. Now, if you want to tell me, oh, Mr. UFO Jesus, but that wasn't on purpose. Exactly. That's the point. It doesn't matter if it's on purpose or not. If something negative happens to someone from the phenomena, that makes it a threat whether the phenomena did it on purpose or not. And therefore, it is absolutely absurd and ridiculous that the only arena in which this is serious discussion is going on is in little tiny shadowy pockets within the government, and the rest of us are just hanging dry, not being a part of that discussion. It's ridiculous, and that needs to change. God willing, it will change. In the following passage, Lou acts as if a senator is confronting him and asking him whether or not he considers the UAP phenomena a national security threat. Hypothetically, sir, Senator so-and-so, Lou, do you think this is really, at the end of the day, is this really a threat? Well, sir, Mr. Senator, we have two options. A, we have something coming into our airspace that we have no idea what it is, how it works, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. And, oh, by the way, it has the capability to bring potentially nuclear capabilities over the White House in 2 minutes. Or, it's a mass delusion. Everybody is absolutely crazy. Thousands of DOD people who have top secret clearances, trained observers who you trust to go fight and win wars with live munitions over U.S. cities, they're crazy. And by the way, some of these people have their finger on the nuclear button. Yeah, I really don't think every one of those people that were cited by Luis Elizondo are crazy. It's the opposite. I think they're onto something. I think it's been verified to them that there is a phenomena that exists in our world. It's not human, and it manifests technologically. Let's hear what David Fravor has to say regarding the phenomena, and then you can determine for yourself whether that man is crazy or not.
You're an experienced pilot. You've been up in the air a lot. I imagine you've seen a lot of things in the sky. What was it about the movement of this or the appearance of this that made you believe it wasn't from this world as opposed to something else?
Well, the first thing is it had no wings, so you think, okay, it's a helicopter. Well, there's no rotor wash in the water. There's no rotors. And when helicopters move side to side, they kind of slow and then they pick up speed going the other way. This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. It would hit and go the other way and change directions at will. And then the ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
So bottom line, what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
One of the explanations that a skeptic will routinely resort to when they are confronted with fighter pilots who say that they've seen things that are doing things that modern technology is not capable of, those skeptics will resort to saying, well, maybe you saw Venus, or maybe you saw a 737 in the distance, or maybe it was some kind of weird atmospheric phenomena. Maybe it was ball lightning. This is what they'll do. And they have convinced themselves in a dogmatic fashion, in a way that's almost akin to religious zealotry, that if a pilot sees something that can't be explained, it's not because they saw something that can't be explained, it's because they saw something and they misidentified it. Now, the beautiful thing is, as we move further and further into a post-disclosure world, is that method of discernment that skeptics rely upon, well, there's going to be a serious wrench thrown into that narrative. Because as we get more fidelity, as we get more footage, as we get more witnesses, as we get more of that data, more of those radar returns, it's not going to paint the picture that skeptics routinely paint. It's going to paint a whole different picture. And so if what David Fravor has conveyed he saw that ends up being backed up by all the data as it piles up, then guess what? Now we have scientific proof that David Fravor and others were indeed reliable observers. So that trope that skeptics love to rely upon is simply going to be met with ridicule in a post-disclosure world. Rightfully so, because pilots aren't always getting it wrong. And that is going to be verified as we move into a post-disclosure world, and I look forward to that. In the following passage, Lou Elizondo talks about the 3 UAP gun camera videos that were released by the US government. So please don't show me some sort of video game that someone pulled off their PC and say, look, that's IR flare, when that's not even a real picture. You're looking at a video game, okay? Give me real data. We had the best of the best from the intelligence community looking at this that briefed me, and they said, Lou, we haven't a clue. This is some weird stuff. And by the way, you will see that we even had people from NTSB on camera analyze it. On camera, same thing. Bingo, not a clue. 50 years of doing investigation for the NTSB. I've never seen anything like this in my career, for the record, on camera. One of the typical rebuttals that a skeptic will give at this point is, well, they'll say, look, there was an incident in Peru where the Peruvian government thought something was a UFO, and as it turned out, it wasn't a UFO. So of course the United States government got it wrong. Well, that's a pretty pitiful rebuttal for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which is ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, that studies UAP, has been around for over a decade. And every single year, they look at multitudes of events with all kinds of corroborating data, including radar returns, electro-optical, infrared video, witnesses, and over again, they're concluding that what they are witnessing, what they are seeing, are not conventional. They're not man-made craft. They're unknowns. So spare me, Mr. Skeptic, with your false equivalences, because I just don't got time for that as we passage into a post-disclosure world. The other thing I want to say is when trained observers with security clearances, military experts in the Pentagon, intelligence experts in the Pentagon, PhDs, all kinds of people who are extremely educated, extremely gifted, and talented are telling us that what is being witnessed is something that's not explainable. Let's not just cast that aside. Let's not just say, well, they're saying that UFOs are real, so therefore their qualifications don't mean squat to me. I call BS on that. But I'm going to try to have a conversation in a way that gets everyone involved and that information comes to you the right way. Because it shouldn't be coming from Luis Elizondo. It shouldn't be coming world according to Lou and this is everything, just bleh. It should be coming through the government channels, the right channels, because ultimately that's why I really left the Department of Defense. I wanted to fix it. I didn't want to ruin it. These are good people. Most of those people are my friends, are foxhole buddies who combat with. They are loyal. They're patriots. Yeah, there's dysfunction in the government. I got it. We all know it. It's there. But there's also a lot of goodness. So I wanted to compel those in leadership positions to fix the system. It's not any one individual's fault. Now, are there little cabals in there that made my life very difficult? Yeah, absolutely there were. And that's another conversation. But they did not represent the government at large. Regarding the cabals that Elizondo speaks of, well, we know that there were members within the Pentagon and the national security apparatus who are religious fundamentalists. And it was their perception that we should not, as a country, have a discussion about this phenomena because by doing so, we will be inviting Satan into our existence or society. I'm not sure what exactly they believe, but what I can tell you is this. What happened to a separation of church and state, right? It's perfectly fine and perfectly awesome if you have your spiritual beliefs. But to impose that on the American people is wrong, and you're doing that indirectly because this phenomena exists in the same way that great whites exist, in the same way that pigeons exist, in the same way that elephants exist and everything else exists. You can't use your spiritual beliefs to quell a conversation that ethically should be occurring amongst the American people because this phenomena exists, and because it exists and because it impacts all of us, we have a right to have a discussion about it. At the end of the day, if it's not a national priority, it's because you didn't make it a national priority. And yes, I'm putting that on your shoulders squarely because you are the people. You are the ones who elect officials. You are the ones that set what the priorities should be. And so if you're not doing it, then somebody else will do it for you. So if you want this to be a national priority, then you have to engage your elected officials. That's what they're there for. And tell them you want this to be a priority and give them briefings and give them data, and then it becomes a national priority. And I'll go on a limb here. I think it's becoming one again. I think we're getting there. Luis Elizondo is absolutely right. If greater transparency on the UAP subject is important to us, then we have to call our Congress members to ensure that they serve we the people. I do anticipate, however, that in the 2020 election, the UAP subject will be a part of that debate, a part of the discussion. For context, Lou Elizondo explains G-forces and how they apply to military hardware. He talks about the F-16, one of the most highly maneuverable aircrafts the U.S. has ever built, which can go 16 to 18 Gs before the material science aspect of the aircraft begins to break down and wings begin to snap off. There are other things such as missiles that can experience much greater G-forces than 16 to 18, but only for very short periods of time. And then Lou goes on to explain the kind of G-forces that are being observed when it comes to UAP technology. But what we're seeing is a consistent and a persistent ability to perform G-forces well in excess of 400 Gs. And that's on the conservative side, well beyond the healthy limitations of anything biologically certain to withstand. And by the way, this is not world according to Lou. This is actually documented. It's been recorded. It's real. You can see it yourself. And the Nimitz is just one of many, many examples that I'm fairly certain are going to come to light really soon. Elizondo stated that the Nimitz event is one of many, many examples. And he's fairly certain that some of those examples are going to come to light fairly soon. So we already know a few of the other incidents that have occurred. We know about the Go Fast video and the gimbal video, which captured UAP events. But recently, George Knapp stated that the gimbal-style UFO has shown up around naval craft off the coast of Florida, as well as off the coast of Virginia, at least 15 times and maybe a couple dozen times. So make no mistakes about it. These UAP intercepts interactions with the military are disturbingly common. They have been officially clocked at over 13,000 miles per hour. Unofficially, much, much faster. And by the way, these are through military capabilities, okay? Not grandma saw some lights in the backyard. Elizondo speaks about the profound innovations that resulted from the last space race. He cites some of those innovations that occurred as a result of the last space race, including portable life support systems, fire-resistant clothing for firefighters, cosmic ray shielding, which are now used by our satellites, CAT scans, LED lighting, HD cameras, human prosthetics. There were a whole plethora of innovations that came out of the last space race. Over 6,300 innovations. And then he goes into talking about how this new paradigm we're going through regarding our acceptance of UAP technology. Guess what? In my opinion, I think we're at that paradigm again. I think we're at this paradigm where now we are faced with a new reality and the sky's the limit, folks. If you think that's exciting, wait until you see what comes out of this. When you can manipulate space-time metric, can you imagine what type of things we can do for mankind and humanity? And that's just one. Speaking of manipulating the space-time metric, here's what Steve Justice, the former director of advanced systems at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, had to say about this kind of advanced technology.
Today, there's a generation of people that are not buying cars. They're using on-demand, point-to-point transportation within cities. Why have a car? Imagine if that was international. Okay, you could go anywhere on the face of the earth in a matter of minutes, and so now you've removed that parameter of distance and time that separates us from friends on the other side of the earth. Putting it in a context, if we had this technology today, imagine how quickly we could get supplies where they're needed for natural disasters, delivering directly to neighborhoods as opposed to having to send them on ships and trucks through this chain of this supply chain to get it to the points where it's actually needed.
Elizondo talks about some of the materials that him and his team received, and through analysis, many of them were not shown to be special at all. But then he goes on to explain. But some of it is absolutely special. I won't point out which ones on that slide, but there are some that are absolutely special and have been briefed to some very, very senior levels of this government, and they do remarkable and extraordinary things, and they are built in such a way that till this day, we still can't replicate them. To this day. I anticipate that within the next 12 to 24 months, the analysis of these materials that To the Stars Academy has come into possession of will be made public and will be peer-reviewed, and it will be demonstrated that some of these materials are engineered and therefore technological in nature, but also there is no evidence that a human civilization produced them. In fact, there's overwhelming evidence that no human civilization on this planet could have produced them. And this reality will indeed escalate the disclosure process. Elizondo was asked that when he said that we're going to learn more about the Nimitz event and we're going to learn about other similar events, is this information going to be revealed on the upcoming docuseries called Unidentified on the History Channel? And this is his response. I do. What better way to get the conversation going than let everybody see it themselves, right? It's one thing for me to sit here in a suit and tell you something, and another thing for you to sit there and actually watch and talk to the people who are there and see it for yourself. So yes, that's our hope, that you will in May begin to appreciate why we've been quiet for the last 7 months. Elizondo was asked what he believes the relationship is regarding the kind of phenomena that has been witnessed at Skinwalker Ranch and the UFO phenomena. Here is his response. I'm going to speak to you from Lou right now. This is my opinion. I'm deliberately not going to address this from an A-tip perspective. I think we live in a really big universe. Most people realize now that there are several hundred billion stars in our galaxies, and there are several hundred billion stars in the observable universe. And the last time we looked at the assessment was that there were more stars in the observable universe than there are grains of sand on all the beaches in the entire world. And that is a phenomenally, almost impossibly large number to wrap your head around. And in fact, if I look to my left and I go 13.5 billion light years in that direction, and I look to my right and I go 13.5 billion light years in that direction, that's a distance of 27 billion light years in between, and that's just what we can see. So there's a lot of stuff out there that we don't understand. We don't even understand half of what's in our ocean. Lou goes on to say, for us to speculate that everything we see is that's it, I think is short-sighted. I think when you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, I'm looking at you right now through a very small sliver that we call visible light, a very small sliver. But we know there's infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, everything from all the way to gamma radiation to cosmic radiation and all the way down to microwave and everything down below. One thing I think Lou is getting across is that there are many, many things to be discovered in our universe. And some of those things are weird and seemingly impossible. And some would say should not exist, should not be possible. But I think that's part of the paradigm shift that we're going to go through very soon. And that is that the universe is far more weird than you could possibly imagine. Lou says the following regarding the upcoming docuseries Unidentified. This is not a UFO hunting show. That's not what this is. This is a docuseries. These are real people in uniform, active duty, telling you what's going on. And we address those questions. So you want to know? Watch it. The fact that there will be active duty members of the military giving their testimony on this upcoming docuseries is pretty much mind-blowing. And I look so forward to watching it and seeing what they have to say regarding their experiences with interacting with unidentified aerial phenomena. And there's another thing I want to say. Any military personnel that goes on the record and tells the world their experience in reference to interacting with UAP is an absolute, utter hero, in my opinion. They're a hero because they're serving their country, and they're a hero because they are pushing the disclosure process forward at a more quick rate. And I believe that benefits every single American. I believe that benefits every citizen of this world, because I believe that learning about this reality of our universe is going to accelerate our learning about ourselves. I believe as well that it's going to be a paradigm shift that is going to lead to great discoveries that will benefit humankind immensely. The bottom line is that Luis Elizondo and members of To the Stars Academy are bona fide disclosure activists. Here, Elizondo was explaining that the docuseries is going to compel people who watch it to get in touch with their Congress members and ask them to take this subject more seriously. All those questions you've been asking from day one since those articles came out, that's in the show, and stuff you've never heard about, never seen before. You're going to say, wow, holy smokes, I had no idea. And that's the purpose. And then that's going to get you to force Congress and ask Congress more questions. And so that's how this works. Here's the last quote by Luis Elizondo from the presentation that I want to share with you. You have momentum now like you've never had before. You have Congress listening. You have the administration listening, and they are not turning their backs. They're not giggling. They're not laughing. They're taking this with dead seriousness. For the last year and a half, I have been telling the universe, I have been telling the world that the disclosure process is going to escalate. And quite frankly, I've been correct. I said that UAP gun camera videos were going to be released, and they were. I'm telling you that analysis of those metamaterials is going to be released, and that they're ultimately going to be peer-reviewed, and that's going to escalate disclosure, and that remains to be seen. I'm telling you that the upcoming docuseries, Unidentified, that will launch on the History Channel in May, is also going to help the disclosure process. And that remains to be seen. I'm telling you that we are on a one-way ticket to disclosure. And that remains to be seen. And I'll tell you, people are always telling me we're never going to get disclosure. Or they're telling me To the Stars Academy is a CIA front, and they're just going to muddy the water and make disclosure that much less likely. Yeah, maybe. We shall see. But let me tell you something. If I end up being wrong, I'm going to get into the fetal position, I'm going to turn off all the lights, and I'm going to medicate myself with ice cream. On the other hand, if I end up being right, I'm going to pop the cork on this champagne, and I'm going to drink it live on YouTube, a couple glasses. And one more thing. If I end up being wrong, this bottle of champagne, let me tell you something. I'm not drinking it. I'm going to FedEx it to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I'm just waiting for images of people visiting, having tea with aliens on the spacecraft.
Don't forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop. Link is in the description below. It's where I sell t-shirts. Or you can even become a patron. Or you could just slap a like on this bad boy and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.